Hi, this is Brian Kim. I'm going to share with you case number 135 in the Best Way to Do Cataract Surgery series. This is a patient with a soft lens, and you're going to see double chop, cross chop, and how I'm easily able to disassemble this lens. And at the end, I'm going to be placing the Istent Inject W, and I'm going to be placing it very, very widely spaced, which requires a little bit of effort and some gymnastics with your body. But when you do that, you're going to see just tremendous blanching. I'm going to have, like, it seems like almost 270 degrees of blanching at the end of the case. And so this is the eye. I'm using a cotton tip to steady the eye and straighten it out. And then I'm using a corneal marker, which will help me to center and size my rhexis. I'm using a metal blade on this case. My diamonds, I think, had to go be processed. And so this is just a metal blade for my paracentesis incision. And it's the same principle. You want to make sure you're parallel to the iris plane, which creates a nice corneal shelf, which will allow me to achieve a self-sealing incision. I'm injecting some intracameral lidocaine and then some intracameral epinephrine. And then this is some dispersive viscoelastic to coat the corneal endothelium and to flatten the anterior capsule. This is a triplanar corneal incision. I make a vertical groove, place the blade into the deep part of the groove, tunnel through the cornea, and then I enter. And this is my puncture style capsular rhexis. I'm pushing some more viscoelastic first, and I'm holding the eye because this patient's trying to bell up. This is the right eye. The patient's tending to bell up, which is towards the left. I'm using that cannula to hold the eye steady and straight. So I puncture with the rhexis forceps, and I'm grabbing the right side of the tear. I'm going around circumferentially. And by having that cannula in the eye, it keeps it straight so that the patient's not rolling the eye upward towards the left. And I'm holding that cannula really on the patient's brow. It's really comfortable. It's not very difficult to do it this way, but it keeps the eye nice and straight, as you can tell. I have a very good control as I'm doing my capsulotomy. And thankfully, I feel like it's a well-centered and sized rhexis. To finish off the rhexis, perp some viscoelastic out. And this is the capsular fornix hydrodissection technique. I place the cannula under the rhexis edge contra-incisionally, get a nice wave. I'm going to decompress on the left side if I can, sweeping along the anterior capsule edge, and then trying to do the same thing on this side. Not really working very well. Sometimes it doesn't want to spin, even though I have had a good, nice wave from the hydrodissection. But I don't perseverate because I know I can still get the lens out. I lift the incision with the chopper, go in with irrigation off to minimize Descemet's trauma, removing the surface epinuclear material, placing the chopper under the rhexis edge contra-incisionally, the phaco tip vertically subincisionally, crushing the lens and bisecting it in half, that's double chop, placing the chopper around the right heminucleus, pulling it towards the center, fracturing the right heminucleus, that is cross chop. Using some vacuum, I lift that first quadrant up and then emulsify it. I'm using the chopper to hook the second quadrant up, which I'm able to do, and then I emulsify it. I'm going to try to turn the lens, but again, you saw in the beginning I had some trouble turning it, so didn't turn, not surprised. So I just use a little vacuum to lift that second heminucleus up, and then crushing the lens between the instruments. And then you saw that last quadrant was nice and loose, and I emulsified it. And so now we have the epinucleus. I'm trying to grab it from anterior posterior. And as you recall, it was a little bit of a challenge to spin the lens. And when I counter that, that means the epinucleus is probably going to be quite adherent to the capsular bag. And so you want to be very mindful as you grab the epinucleus that you don't grab the capsular bag either. So that's why I'm just deciding to come out. I'm taking the chopper out, pushing BSS in, take the phaco tip out, and I go in with the ironing handpiece, starting to remove the cortex in the subincisional area. And as I do that, you can see the epinucleus is starting to come up. I start to remove the cortex adjacent to that area, and you can see that the epinucleus is starting to loosen up here. So now the epinucleus is out. I switch to polish mode, polishing under the rhexis edge, polishing the posterior capsule as well. There's some fine wisps of cortical material all around. Again, when you have trouble spinning the lens, I oftentimes notice this type of situation, a lot of adherent lens material. Again, fine lens material, but again, material nonetheless. So push some BSS into the subincisional capsule fornix. There's some little bit of material there that I was able to grab. And this is some cohesive viscoelastic to fill the bag. And with this case, I'm using that other capsule polisher, the Shepherd polisher. And then it also has a Singer sweep on the other end of it for the left side incision. So I go ahead and inject the single piece acrylic lens into the capsular bag. And then I'm using the sweep to make sure that the haptics come off the optic. And then we're going to redirect our attention to the Istent Inject W. I'm going to fill the anterior chamber with some viscoelastic, coat the cornea. I'm turning the eye away from me. And another thing you want to do is you want to reset your microscope. If you're really off axis, at the extreme end of your focus, it might be a challenge because when you're trying to place the stent and you're trying to bring focus and you find out you're at the edge of your focus, it's really quite annoying because you're not able to go any further. So it's always good to reset your focus before you do your mixed case. So you can see the eye is turned away from me. I have a dollop of viscoelastic on the cornea, and this is the gonio lens. So with the Istent Inject W, I'm going through the main incision. You can see the sleeve is down. I have a really nice view. Go ahead and retract the sleeve, and now you can see the trocar. You see the needle, you see the barrel. I push, I fire. You want to go straight back, and when you do that, luckily in this case, it's in good position. And I pushed it again, so I wonder if it wasn't quite in, but now it's in good position. So I push the sleeve back down and I come out. And then I'm just pushing with some viscoelastic, making sure it is in good position. You can see it's nice and flush against the wall. So I'm repositioning myself. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to get myself in good focus. And here's the stent. I retract the sleeve. You can see the trocar and the needle. Trying to get as far as I can to the right. I'm nice and perpendicular. I get a nice en-face approach. I fire, and it goes in perfectly. I go in with the INA handpiece with irrigation off, activate irrigation, go underneath the lens, tilting it, removing all the viscoelastic from within the bag. You can see I'm polishing under the rexus edge, but what I really want to show you is look at how much blanching there is. There's a tremendous amount of blanching of the conjunctiva, and it seems like it's just all over. I mean, like 270 degrees of blanching. I'm not quite sure that makes any sense, and I'm not quite sure I can take all of the credit with the stent, but nonetheless, it worked out quite well on this particular patient. And again, wide placement of the stent, I think, is quite advantageous in these situations to get maximum collector channels involved to help drain the fluid. You also saw in this case the use of double chop, cross chop mechanical fracturing techniques in this somewhat soft lens. It's fairly easy to manipulate the lens pieces when you're dealing with soft lenses. You can essentially use both instruments to cut the lens almost like a cheese wire, and it makes it quite efficient, especially when you're able to hook the lens pieces up out of the bag. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I thank you for your attention.